Afternoon. Welcome, everyone. My name is Lori Ann, and I'm the Director of Education at the National Women's History Museum. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for Brave Girls Virtual Storytime. For those of you who are with us for the first time, welcome. For those of you who have attended a Brave Girls program before, welcome back. We thank you for taking time out of your Wednesday to be with us this afternoon. As always, we are recording this presentation so that it can be made available on our website following the event. Excuse the gravelly voice. This particular recording will be available for a limited time through the remainder of the month of February, so please check it out as soon as it becomes available. Today's story is in special recognition of Black History Month and the women whose accomplishments often go unrecognized. As a girl coming of age during the civil rights movement, Patricia Bath made it her mission to become a doctor. When obstacles like racism, poverty, and sexism threatened the school, she persevered, brightening the world with a game-changing treatment for blindness. Author Julia Finley Mosca joins me today. She'll be reading her 2017 picture book, The Doctor with an Eye for Eyes, the story of Dr. Patricia Bath. She'll be answering your questions after the presentation. So if you, your classmates, or your grown-ups would like to ask a question, please use the Q&A function on the toolbar at the bottom of the screen to submit your questions. You can ask your questions at any time during the presentation, and we'll get to as many as time allows. And now I'm very pleased to introduce our author. Julia Finley Mosca is a copywriter and former journalist who spent more than a decade in Hollywood crafting messages for money. After working with such recognizable brands as Entertainment Tonight, Yahoo, American Greetings, and Jib Jab, she landed her most rewarding job yet, mom to one ferociously curious and spunky little girl, which reminds me of some of you. The Amazing Scientist series, of which today's story is a part, marks Julia's debut into the magical world of children's books. Brave girls and boys, please join me in welcoming Julia to our story time.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Lorianne, for having me, and thank you to the National Women's History Museum. I am so excited and a little bit nervous to be here. I am joining you from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm right here on Lake Erie, one of our Great Lakes. And if you're out there joining me from California or Florida or Texas, I'm really jealous because it's a little bit cold here. We've had snow for about a month and a half. My daughter is in second grade. Lorianne just mentioned her. Her name is Joey, and she's at school today, but she is probably the main inspiration for a book series that I wrote about women in STEM. So that's scientists and doctors and engineers. These are women that I never learned about in school, but I wish that I had. And so I wanted to tell their stories. And Lorianne mentioned my journalist background. So it kind of mixed my journalist background and my author background to be able to interview all of these women and ask them about their lives. And so a couple of the books I've written are about, this one is about Ray Montague. She is an engineer who designed the very first ship using a computer system that she invented. And I've also written about Ellen Ochoa. She is the world's first Latina astronaut. Also Temple Grandin, who you may have heard of, she's over here. And she made the world more compassionate for animals. And many of her inventions helped the farming industry. But today, I'm going to tell you about Dr. Patricia Bath, and this is a perfect book to celebrate Black History Month because Dr. Bath did a lot of things to break barriers for African-American women. She was the first Black woman to get a medical patent, and that basically means the first Black woman to get credit for inventing something. And so let's jump right into the story and you'll find out what she invented. So this is The Doctor with an Eye for Eyes, the story of Dr. Patricia Bath. My other two books to the side here. If you like to think big, but some say you're too small, or they say you're too young, or too slow, or too tall, pay no mind to their doubts and just follow the path of one awesome inventor, Patricia E. Bath. On the 4th of November in Harlem, New York, one family, the Baths, got a gift from a stork. A baby, Patricia, quite clever was she. All the good she'd accomplished the world would soon see. And so, of course, we know that babies don't come from storks, but even in nonfiction books, it's okay to put some fun details in there. And the real Dr. Bath thought that was funny. Now, this girl from New York, she loved playing with boys. Her big brother, so thoughtful, shared all of his toys. Every hobby he had, she would copy, it's true. She said, anything boys can do, girls can do too. And so the real Patricia Bath used to tell me how wonderful her brother was. He always included her. Yet the toy she loved most, she will never forget, was a gift from her mother, a chemistry set. Well, it got her to thinking, hey, science is neat. This new passion of hers, it just couldn't be beat. As she grew a bit older, she yearned to do more. With science, I'll help the world sick and the poor. And a friend of the family's, a doctor so swell, inspired the teen. I can be one as well. And so as Patricia got a little older, she had some family friends who were doctors. And sometimes we don't know what we want to be when we grow up. And until we see somebody, a grown-up who does that job, we don't know that it's a possibility. So Patricia saw that her family's friend was a doctor, and she thought, that's for me. Oh, but doctors back then, most were men, you will find. Still, Patricia stood firm. That did not change her mind. See, her father was smart and a jack of all trades. He taught her, we're equal, all genders, all shades. Yes, her parents were thrilled. They encouraged her goal. They said, nothing's off limits, no job, dream, or role. The Baths didn't have much, but were wise nonetheless. Education, they said, is the key to success. And so Patricia was lucky that she had parents who really supported her dreams. Even though there weren't a lot of women or Black women who were doctors, they said, you can do it. You can do anything. Now, the problem with that, every nearby high school was only for white kids with money, not cool. So to high school by train, nothing stopped her, you see. And though most kids took 4 years, she finished in 3. And this part is a little bit confusing. So what this means, this was about 60 years ago. And at that time, believe it or not, white kids and Black kids were not allowed to go to the same school. It's pretty awful, not cool, as we say. And so you probably have a public school near you where anybody can go. But Patricia Bath did not have a public school near her home where she could go for free, because remember, her family did not have much money. So she needed a public school. And so what she had to do in order to find a school that would allow young Black girls to go, she had to take a train every day by herself. And she did it. She told me it took an hour, both ways, an hour to go to school and an hour to come home. But she did it. And not only did she do it, she loved school so much that she studied hard and she finished early. She graduated before most people do. So she was super smart. What next? Off to college and then medical school, where she found that her classmates were boys as a rule. And when girls weren't allowed to sit in the front row, Patricia said, phooey, that won't make me low. All those unfair restrictions did not bring her down. There were more pressing matters and no time to frown. A decision was due, what her focus would be. I've been thinking, she said, I will help people see. And so she decided she was going to study like she had planned to be an eye doctor. But again, things were unfair. And like this page says, girls were not allowed to sit in the front row of the class, if you can believe that. So there were a lot of obstacles that Patricia had to overcome, but she kept on going. Then she studied the eye as an eager intern. Treating hospital patients was what helped her learn. Through her work, she discovered there's something not right. her Black patients were blind 2 times more than the white. And so in order to be a doctor, you have to actually practice being a doctor. And she started to see, she said, why are so many more patients who are Black coming in and they're blind and they're having eye problems? Something's going on. What has caused this to happen? She wanted to know. In locations like Harlem, where money is low, she came up with a plan. We must conquer this plight. The public, she said, must prioritize sight. With this mission in mind, the new doctor went west. At a school near the sea, she spread word of her quest. She was young, but her knowledge and skill made her wise. She taught hundreds of students to understand eyes. And so this is a really important page because Patricia Bath became one of the first people, not just one of the first women or one of the first Black women, but one of the first people to really start being an activist and get out there and say, no matter what type of community you live in, no matter what languages you speak, no matter what the family, whether the families are Black or white, what their religions are, whether they're poor, whether they're rich, every community needs to have eye care and good health care. And so she would continue to speak out about that for the rest of her life. And so now she's a doctor and she's a teacher. But it wasn't all cheery. Some things she would fight, like the desk in a dungeon that barely had light. No, thank you, she said. I will need a new placement because nobody puts Dr. Bath in a basement. And so again, another obstacle, even though she was this successful doctor and successful teacher, she faced racism, which is that just because she was a Black woman in a world where almost all of her coworkers were white, they gave her a really bad office. But she stood up for herself and she said, no, you're going to give me the office that I deserve. Well, she got that new desk. Then she hit a grand slam when she started an eye doctor training program. She would lead it for years. And what makes that so sweet, she'd be the first woman to achieve such a feat. So all these firsts, now she's the first director of an eye doctor training program at UCLA. Do you think she stopped there? No, siree, she did not. All her goals to help people, she still had a lot. I will find better treatments for blindness, she swore. Straight to Europe she went, and she studied some more. In cities like Paris, she learned about lasers. These light beams, she said, will be little eye savers. She practiced for months. Oh, and one final mention, her research, it led her to make an invention. This tool she developed, a new laser probe, fixed the eyeballs of patients all over the globe. And so she was working with lasers. You might know what lasers are, like beams of light, and you can use them in medicine. This is what she discovered and invented. Sometimes, especially older people, will have what we call cataracts. It's almost like a cloud on your eyeball that makes it difficult to see. And so she realized you could use these light beams to almost dissolve or burn off the cataracts in a safe way. So this was amazing. This was helping people to see again. And because of her work, those without sight for years, like 15 or 20 or 30 more years, they could finally see. We should give her 3 cheers. And so say it with me. Hooray, Dr. Bath. Hooray, Dr. Bath. Hooray, Dr. Bath. 3 cheers for Dr. Bath. But wait, she did more. She created a place to bring hope to the whole human race. Its motto is this: rich or poor, Black or white, healthy vision's important. It's everyone's right. And that place is called the American Institute for the Prevention of Blindness. It still exists today. and it does exactly what Dr. Bath wanted it to. It researches how we can make better eye care available to everybody, no matter where they live and no matter how much money they have. Now, for all that she's done and the progress it brings, Dr. Bath is well known. She's accomplished great things. But applause for her work? Well, to her, it seems strange. Fame was never her wish. What she wanted was change. Yes, that girl from New York with the chemistry set, who was born when most doctors were men, don't forget, grew to be quite a hero, but she'll never boast. It's her will to heal people that matters the most. So if helping the world seems too hard, you are wrong. If some say you can't do it, don't listen, be strong. Like Patricia, stay focused, push forward, shine bright, and you'll find all your dreams will be well within sight. And so that is the story of Dr. Patricia Bath, and the real Patricia Bath, here she is. She wrote a note. She says, "Dear reader, begin each day by asking a question. Let the answer lead you to another question, and you will discover that learning and knowledge are an infinite playground." From Dr. Patricia Bath. And at the end of this book, if you want to learn more, if you can go to a bookstore or a library, I've put in a timeline of her life and a biography. And my favorite part, I interviewed, like I told you, I interviewed Dr. Bath. And so I included lots of things from our discussion, all the fun answers she gave me. And so I hope that you really enjoyed that story and learned a lot about this amazing pioneer in our history.
So much, Julia, for reading that story to us and all the wonderful explanations you gave. I have some questions that are starting to come in, and some that were submitted beforehand. We have some teachers who will frequently read the book with our class before Brave Girls and gather those questions together and submit those to me. And I thought a really great one to follow up the reading with is, what is Dr. Bath like in real life?
Oh my goodness. Well, sadly, first of all, I have to tell everybody, when I wrote these books, we chose to write about scientists who were still alive today so that I could interview them. And I was so lucky to interview Dr. Bath and talk to her on the phone. But unfortunately, Dr. Bath actually passed away a couple of years ago. And that was sad for so many reasons for the world, but she and I had planned to meet in person for coffee in Los Angeles, where she was living. And I was so excited about that, but I did not get the chance to do that. But she did email with myself and my publisher often. And she was just an amazing, determined woman, never ever stopped fighting. Even near the end of her life, she was on Good Morning America, and she was speaking about universal health care and how it's everybody's right to have health care. We need to have our leaders and our government find a way for everyone, no matter what community, your skin color, your medical conditions you might have. Everybody needs to have good health care. And she never ever stopped fighting for that.
Another question we had was, how did you come across Dr. Bath's story and accomplishments?
Gosh, that's a good question, because this was the second book that I wrote, and I think it was actually just readers like all of you out there. I think I was, my publisher and myself, we had written our first book about Temple Grandin, and then we were looking for somebody to write the next book about. And someone somewhere must have come across a story about Dr. Bath and said the same thing that I did, which is, why haven't I ever heard of this woman? She needs to be famous. Everybody needs to know her. And so it was really the readers who helped me pick all of the women that I wrote about.
Wonderful. And you have this quote from Dr. Bath in the back of your book, where she talks about how she starts her day asking herself a question. And that's sort of how she begins her learning process. So one of the questions that was sent to us was, how do you begin your learning process?
Oh gosh, as far as a writer, I guess I'm always
Sure.
asking questions. I don't even, my entire life is me asking questions. And that's why as a little girl, I knew pretty early on that I wanted to be a journalist, because all I do is ask questions and I try to understand where people are coming from, even people I don't agree with. I try to find out, why are they thinking that? Why do they think that? Am I wrong? Are they wrong? You know, I try to keep an open mind. So I think Dr. Bath and I had a lot in common as far as that. I do every single day wake up and start asking questions and start researching.
That's good, because there's still a lot of questions coming from our audience, including this one from Laura. She says that you mentioned in the book how supportive Dr. Bath's parents were, and how they really pushed her to shine and not give up on her dreams. So Laura wants to know, who pushed you forward and helped you to shine?
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That is a good question. Uh, it's less of who pushed me forward. It's more of a what pushed me forward. And that is a lot of obstacles and difficult things that I went through as a child, pushed me to want to grow up and use my voice to help others who were going through difficult situations, not only situations that I went through myself, but it helped me to empathize with other people. And so even if you feel like you don't have that person like Dr. Bath did, then look inside yourself and really, you can be that person for yourself. I always tell kids that I talk to, be your own cheerleader. And I say it to my sister, who's a grown adult all the time, and she loves it. I say, Susan, be your own cheerleader. If nobody else is out there cheering you on, if you don't have that person, then do it for yourself.
Love that. That's such a great message. And here's one from our first grade writers in Berkeley, California. They asked, how did you feel when you published your first book?
Oh my gosh, it was incredible. It was a lifelong dream. I actually didn't think I was going to publish children's books. Again, I was a journalist and I started in news, and I've been trying to write a novel, an adult book, all my life. And so I didn't really think about children's books, but when the opportunity came along, it filled that lifelong dream to be a writer, because being a writer and an author is something that I've always wanted to do. And I can't even explain it. It just, to see my book in the first bookstore on a real shelf, it felt like everything I had done. And I had a long career before it came out of 20 years of writing and not getting much credit, and doing other jobs that were amazing, like working in restaurants and things that had nothing to do with writing. But I always tell people, every experience, every job, it all means something. You learn from every single situation. And so all of those things kind of led up to maybe these stories that I finally got to write. And it was just cool to be able to share something with the world and have other people read something that I wrote.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sort of along that same line, Teddy would like to know, what is your favorite book that you wrote?
Oh, that I wrote?
Mhm.
Oh, well, that's like asking who's my favorite child.
Right.
I feel really bad saying, and I have reasons for each book that I love each of the women. There is one that in particular, and it is this one. I have a special spot for this one because this woman, Ray, she did such amazing, incredible things, and then was just so unappreciated. She invented a computer system that her white boss and her white coworkers took credit for and received praise for, and she didn't get that credit for decades and decades and decades. So that is just unbelievable to me. Finally, she also passed away just a couple of years ago, but she got the credit she so rightly deserved at the end of her life, and I am just so happy for that. But as far as favorite, I mean, I can't choose a favorite. Dr. Bath was just such, like I said, a determined, fiery woman. I felt like I had a lot in common with her. She lived in Los Angeles, where I used to live. And so I found common ground with all of these ladies, and I just really connected with them all and loved telling their stories.
Wonderful. It sounds like we have a future, another Brave Girls Virtual Storytime where we can maybe talk about Ray Montague's story.
Sure.
Other than, this is from Soraya, she says, other than the cure to blindness, what other things do you feel are Dr. Bath's biggest accomplishments?
Definitely the, what is it called? The American Institution for the Prevention of Blindness, because they are still to this day doing all of those things that Patricia Bath was always fighting for, making sure that when every child goes to school, there's an eye doctor that comes in and checks their eyes, and making sure there are free eye clinics in every community, things like that, that can really be life-changing to people who need that care and maybe can't afford it. So that is something that affected our world and will continue to benefit our world.
Absolutely. And I'm going to combine these next two questions for time's sake. Jane would like to know, when did you decide to write books? And Brianna would like to know more about your writing. Do you have a website? Do you only write about women?
Well, my career path was a long, winding path. And again, that's why I tell people every step in that path might seem like it doesn't make sense, but it all will. So I started writing as a child. I read all the time. And that's my biggest advice. If some of you out there want to be a writer, just read, and that will make you a better writer. So my parents could not get me away from books. And then as a journalist, I was writing stories every day. So that was really the start of my writing career. Every day I would go out and cover a news story and write about that news story. And let's see. So the question was, now I've forgotten the question.
There's too many at once.
Yeah.
Do you have a website? It's really
hard to say how I started writing those books specifically. I worked with my publisher. She had an idea for a book series about women scientists. And so we worked together to put this series together. And it benefited her that I had a journalistic background, and also that I like to rhyme. I've been writing poems all my life. I'm not a trained poet. I can't tell you what iambic pentameter even means, but I love rhythm. And so she recognized that, and we got together, collaborated, and these books were born. And then there was a second part to that the second question.
Do you only write about women? And I threw your website address into the chat for anyone who wants to follow up. But do you only write about women? Obviously, you have this series about women scientists. So that was a question.
So far, yes, but I am working on some manuscripts that hopefully will go somewhere. And I'm actually trying to move a little bit more toward humor, towards some funny books. Some of them rhyme and some of them don't, but I need to find somebody to buy them first. I'm also working on a memoir about myself, and I am a woman, so that kind of falls into that theme. And I'm working, gosh, I have about 12 different stories I'm working on, and that's probably common of most writers. But yes, I would say most of them do somehow center around women. So maybe even subconsciously, that's just something I'm passionate about.
Well, that was Clara's question. Actually, Clara is also a first grader who's joined us today, and she was asking if you were currently writing a book. It sounds like you are writing numerous books at any given time. So.
Yes, writers are always, I have on my computer screen a lot of documents, and they're all open, and I'm just hopping between. Sometimes I'll get a thought on this story, so I'll go over there and write a few lines, and then I'll go over to this story. I don't know if that's common actually of most writers, but that's how I work. And eventually some of them get finished or some of them get scrapped. I recently finished the story, And then I looked on Amazon and somebody else had the same exact idea I had. It was very, very close. And so I said, well, that one, spent a lot of time on it, but I guess I have to let it go. And as far as website, is the website you shared, the Amazing Scientists
No, it was your
website?
personal website.
Oh yes, on Facebook. On Facebook, I have a website and Instagram. Julia Finley Mosca on Instagram. And you can see my little girl. Losing my voice after all that.
Well, that's okay. We need to bring the program to a close anyway. Thank you so much, Julia. I don't know why you were nervous because you just did a beautiful presentation. So thank you for sharing this inspiring story with us. Just a reminder that the presentation today, again, is being recorded and will be available on our website for viewing later this week until the end of the month. Join us for the next Brave Girls Virtual Storytime, which will kick off our Women's History Month celebration, yay, Wednesday, March 2nd, with Planting Stories, the life of librarian and storyteller Pura Belpre. I'm very excited about this book. Until then, keep reading and be brave. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye now.